Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 330 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job, that launched a couple of weeks ago on Amazon. So go and pick up that book today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I was just speaking at the AFLV Central Conference in Indianapolis a week ago, and I was talking about empathy and building a culture of care while students are in college. Not only is that critical in values-based organizations like fraternities and sororities, not only is that just the right thing to do, but it actually protects our members and our guests, and that skill will help you to build a high-performance company long after graduation. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Our next guest is the author of a book. It's called From the Heart, Achieving Epic Results Through Building a Heart-Based Culture of Compassion and Empathy. For over 2 decades, Wade Thomas has served as a strategic talent executive who guides leaders to develop and shape organizations from the perspective of high-performance management, coupled with compassion and empathy. Wade's approach has helped businesses solve critical issues based on skill sets, attitudes, and actions of people, which are the essential ingredient for building a sustainable competitive advantage. Wade's formula for success is founded on building a culture of compassion and empathy, which has proven to drive business success for hundreds of organizations. As the founder and CEO of Aim to Win, Wade has coached and consulted with hundreds of leaders who are now practicing the principles of bringing out the best in high-performing individuals and teams so that they are equipped to achieve organizational excellence and, of course, business growth. Wade resides in Phoenix, Arizona with his family. He gets invigorated by taking in a game of soccer, playing a round of golf, or hiking the local foothills. Welcome to the show, Wade.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, and I love the angle you got last week when we had a conversation.
Absolutely. Listen, I think, what you're doing is great. Anytime we can talk about empathy and compassion, I'm all about it because it's one of those things that I look around, I read a lot of the newspaper articles that are happening on college campuses. And a lot of these articles, I just read it and I'm like, where's the compassion? Where is the empathy? And I think if we can make that real for the students in terms of how that pays off over a lifetime, then we got it. That is really the key. When we're talking to college students, they need to understand how that pays off over their career. And then you got them. But if it's like an abstract idea, forget it. We're going to lose them real quick. But I know that you're going to make it real for these students. Now, you decided on Stetson University for your undergraduate experience. Tell us, why was Stetson your choice?
It's I grew up in Florida, and a smaller world back then. And so, I looked at Stetson, it's a school of about 3,000 students at the time, and then all the state schools. And, I went to a big high school. My high school was bigger than my college. And I just didn't, and I was an introvert. And, just the idea of being in a class, a freshman biology class with 2,000 of my closest friends, just was a little daunting. So that got Stetson on the radar. And I had a great opportunity to go up and visit the campus on we had a recruiting weekend, or I'm not sure what exactly they called it. But I sat through a sample class that was done by a professor. And I'll always remember this professor to this day. He taught in a way that I'd never seen taught before in the state of Florida public school system. He taught in a way that made us think and challenge our thinking, and it was a little bit off the center. He was an English professor. That class that day was, The Path Less Traveled by Robert Frost. And he just spent that class just analyzing the poem. And that just impressed me. And the energy he put into it was very much a helping energy. It wasn't up there lecturing. You could tell that his passion was not in teaching, but his passion was in seeing us learn. And that hooked me. I end up, I still remember freshman English, I had him again. And the whole semester class was based on the Who song, Behind Blue Eyes. I'm not sure you get that in most places. So that's how I got to Stetson in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a great story. I love that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember the really good professors that made us think. I think ultimately their job is, just like you said, not necessarily to teach, not to indoctrinate, but rather to make us think on our own, and develop some of those skills, I think, for what's ahead. So I love that story. That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you're an entrepreneur. What are some of the different types of entrepreneurs that you've seen out there? And specifically, which one are you?
So I look at entrepreneurs in four categories, and I'll start with the fact that I don't believe you can really put people in boxes. Everybody's unique, but we don't have time, so I have to put them in boxes today. So I think there's kind of one of the prototypical entrepreneur types is inventor. Somebody goes out there and they create something new. The light bulb, the calculator, whatever it is, and they ride that, and they make a lot of money that way. The second kind of archetype is the hard worker. And that's the person that just puts their nose to the grindstone and work the 70 or 80-hour weeks, and they just pull their way through and get the results. Because they're just working really hard. The third type, and this is a type I've seen a lot, and it's the wealthy type. This is the person that one of the best ways to make a small fortune is to start with a large one. And and certainly there's a lot of like very successful entrepreneurs out there that start off wealthy. They had a good leg up, and if you are lucky to have that, or if you amassed it yourself, good for you. Not everybody fits that category. The fourth type, and this is the one I relate to the most, and that's the improver. So that's the person isn't really inventing anything new. They're taking something that's out there already and they're making it better, or they're applying it to something different. And that's what I do. So there's a lot of, I didn't invent business coaching. I didn't invent executive coaching. I didn't invent leadership development. I just take different spins on it, and different angles, and just doing it in different ways. And so that's kind of where I fit in there.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm probably half improver, half hard worker. I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the room. I will outwork people, that is for sure. And I do like to take existing things and improve upon them. I think that's how my mind works. I look at things and I say, okay, how can I make this product or this service better some way, somehow? And that's usually where I've come up with some of the best business ideas that have really taken off. So I really like those four categories, and I do think that it certainly fits most of the entrepreneurs that are out there. Tell us about a mistake, because I think a lot of college students today are afraid to fail, and that is really unfortunate. So, what is the biggest mistake you made early on in your business?
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying that I'm a good business coach today for the simple reason I have failed more than you. And I've tried a lot of things. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I think that's what coaches often bring to the table is, they have either failed themselves or they've seen enough failure that they've learned from it. And so they can bring that to the table. So when I kind of take a step back there and look at what would I call my biggest mistake? I think one of the biggest mistakes I made early on was I outsourced marketing. And this is an interesting one. This takes a lot of reflection, right? Because oftentimes when I'm working with clients, one of the things I try to get them to is outsourcing marketing. And because most of us, marketing takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge is different next week than it is today. And so if your business is not marketing, you're not going to be as up to date on the marketing as a marketing pro will be. And in fact, I have a marketing degree. I graduated in 1993. It's completely, junk now. But so outsourcing marketing makes a lot of sense. But here's the thing: outsourcing marketing has to happen at the right time. And so when I did it, which was fairly early in my business, I wasn't ready for it. I hadn't really mapped out. I thought I had, but I hadn't mapped out a really good strategy, a good service offering strategy. I hadn't really clearly defined who I am and what I bring to the table. And if I can't even clearly define that for myself, it's really hard to clearly define that for an outsourced marketing company. and they were good. They were a good marketing firm, but garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And so it just wasn't. I wasn't clear enough on my business strategy to make that move yet.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm still very heavily involved in the marketing, even today for the business, because obviously I know the inside and out of the business. I know what kind of values I want to portray. I know exactly what our distinct advantages are in the marketplace that I can take advantage of. When you outsource it, obviously, you're trying to get your vision in the mind of somebody else who's going to do that for you, but that doesn't always work out. It doesn't always translate exactly, and if they miss the mark, that could have catastrophic impact on your
Yeah.
business. So I
Absolutely.
definitely, in the beginning, I agree with you. I think you really should be leading that effort.
Yeah. Well, actually, I brought it back in house.
Yeah,
So I mean, I don't do it all myself, but I drive it. I have people that do the execution, the implementation of it.
right,
Because I do think that you have a role in marketing. It's one of your biggest jobs. But should you be the one that is sitting on Facebook and posting all day?
right. Is that a
Yeah.
good use of your time?
Is it a good use, or are you the one that knows best how to manage the algorithms?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. I really like that. Now, obviously, you're all about heart-based leadership, talking about compassion and empathy into the process to get big results. What is heart-based leadership, and how does that help companies grow?
Yeah. So heart-based leadership is a really interesting thing, and I'll tell a story on that. Um, I went on from Stetson. I did some sales, ran a retail store for a while. Then went back and got an MBA from Indiana University, so much different experience.
Mhm.
And I came out of there and I did it in human resources. So I came out and yeah, I was a corporate human resource person for about 6 months out of what was supposed to be a 3-year rotation. 6 months in, they put me into a manufacturing plant, union plant, about 500 employees, and a struggling plant. Had never made money. They just signed a union contract, so there's a lot of conflict. And I was sent there with the instructions that there's two entities there. There's management and a union, and you can't let the union win. That's your only job. So I came in there one morning, and one of the first things I did, because it's kind of who I am, is I walked the plant floor. And I did that for every day for a week. I mean, I was out there a lot. And you know what I learned? I learned that there was not just two people there. It wasn't just Mr. Management, Mr. Union. There was Bonnie and Beth and John and Steve and Ben and all these different people, and all had different desires and dreams and agendas. And by the way, management was the same way. It wasn't just management. It was Larry, it was Al, it was Bob. It was all those people. So I went to the plant manager at the time, who was a seasoned plant manager but new in this particular plant. I said, "What if we really got to know these people and treated them like individuals?" And so, to my surprise, he bought into it. And so we started rolling out a program, which now I recognize as empathy and compassion. But we rolled that out. We turned that plant around in a year. The relations with the employees turned around great. Turnover went from 130% to about 50% annualized, which is good for manufacturing. Our safety rate got better, and we made money. And I was like, wow, this works. And so I implemented that throughout the remainder of my corporate career. And now I teach it and coach it. And it really is all about just getting to know people that you're working with, treating them like people. And what happens then is a few things. They stay, right? They work hard for you because they know that you're looking out for them, so they're going to look out for you. Those are two obvious ones. But there's a couple other things that happen. One is you get a lot more creativity and innovation because they feel safe. They're not afraid to put their ideas out there. They're not afraid they're going to get hacked off or insulted or fired. And the other thing too is when you take that same mentality and you apply it to your customer base, you end up with a situation like Ritz-Carlton or Nordstrom, where you have such a real powerful impact on your business from the revenue side. So it really applies across all aspects of the business.
I like that a lot. And it certainly relates, I think, to college student organizations, which is that, everybody's different. Everybody's motivated by something different. And I think you have to start by asking that question, what is it that you want from this organization? And just sit and listen to what they tell you. And that
Yeah.
ultimately becomes the way that you motivate them going forward. But if you're going to treat all of your employees the same, all of the people that are in your organization the same, you're not going to get good results because everybody has their own personal brand. Everybody has their own personal needs and desires. And if you don't ask the question, you'll never know what that is. And they're
Yeah.
going to feel like you don't even know them. You don't even know what makes them tick. But you got to start by asking the question. And so that's typically what I like to do in the first meeting with a large group, is to basically say, hey, tell me, what are your dreams for this organization? And I want you to think big. A lot of students tend to think really small, but I want them to dream big. And then once we know what that dream looks like, then that becomes how we motivate them going forward to help participate in building what it is that their vision is for the organization.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And when you're in a work world versus the academic world,
Mm-hmm.
work world, at least you can fall back on pay. You're paying them. So it's even more important in, academics or any volunteer organization.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Now, we do have many college student leaders that are listening right now to your voice. How do these leaders on college campuses, how do they make an impact as a leader in their organization?
Yeah. So I'll go back to a story of my own again here. Because I think sometimes that's the best way to illustrate these concepts.
Yeah.
So I think it was my junior year, and then again my senior year. I was a president of business fraternity,
Mhm.
Alpha Kappa Psi on campus.
Sure.
And when I came into the organization as a sophomore, um, it was basically, we met, I don't know, once a month, maybe once every other month, a few times a semester. Maybe we had a speaker, maybe we didn't. I'm not sure what we did, but it was like $50 a semester, right?
Right.
And even in $1990, that wasn't much. And it was a club. And the reason it was a club was that's what everybody wanted, right? We don't want to spend a whole lot of money. That's for the Greek system, all that kind of stuff. So I came in and I was fairly dissatisfied as a pledge in my sophomore year, and then and then 1 year or one semester as a regular member. And so I started just asking that question, like, is this true? Is this what you want? And everybody had different things they wanted. But most of them did not want that. And so I then said, okay, I sat down with my executive team because they were involved in everything I did, right? So I did not want this to be a one-man band yet. I wanted, other people involved in this. And we set a vision. What do we want this to become based on what we had learned from talking to people? And I had everybody in the team do it. We all talked to people and interviewed them. And so we set this vision of what we wanted to become. We wanted to become more engaged in meetings, not once a month. We want to be doing some kind of activity at least every week. We want to bring social activities into it. We want to visit other chapters. We want to go to, national conferences. Really kind of just changing the whole dynamic. In order to do that, by the way, we had to, I think we tripled dues or quadrupled dues. It was a big bump. And we got pushback. We got pushback from the old guard. The people that, the seniors, the people that are around a bit. Some of them, liked it. They liked the change, but there was a group that didn't, and they opted to spend their time elsewhere. And that was fine. But but at the end of it, we grew membership. And by the way, I included pledges in these interviews too. And we tripled membership during the 2 years I was in office. I was actually elected to or asked to serve for a second term, which is unprecedented as well. And before handing it over my last semester, but we tripled membership during that time, and it really became effective. We became known as one of the best chapters in the state of Florida, and so it was quite impactful. So to sum that up, the moral of the story is really start with the empathy piece. And again, of course, I didn't call it that back then, but we learned what was driving everybody. So then we set a vision with that, because people, you have to take that and you have to get it into one direction, because people have to have something to follow. And then we handle the dissenters in a compassionate and fair way.
I love that. I think that's great. And it just kind of reminds me that, we should be surveying our members often in terms of, do you like what's going on? Do you like the direction that we're headed in? If the answer is no, well, you know what? We need to figure that out. We need to map out a vision that everybody can get behind, because you're right. When you have a student organization filled with 50 students, each one of them wants to go in a different direction. So I think, the biggest challenge is figuring out what can we all agree on in terms of where we want to take this thing. So kudos to you for figuring that out and actually mapping out a vision that everybody bought into. And I think ultimately, if you allow them to build it, then they're going to be much more invested in that process. So I like a lot of that. Now, right now in the world, there's so much uncertainty out there. I mean, we have uncertainty in the job market right now. I mean, the latest shows very, very low unemployment, which I think is wonderful. But certainly, I think for college students that are getting ready to graduate in May, there's still some question marks out there. Inflation continues to be a big problem here in the United States and really all over the world. We have this war that's going on in Ukraine. We got balloons that are flying over the United States from China. The pandemic, that's still something that lurks in the background, even though, in the United States, maybe you don't even really realize that that's still a thing. And then we have this political power struggle. People are announcing their candidacy for president of the United States and starting their campaigns now for 2024. So how do we lead when there's so much uncertainty that surrounds us?
Well, first of all, now more than ever, people need to be led. And there's so many, I think there are a lot more leadership positions out there than there are leadership ready people. So, if you are a leader, you need to step up and take that role. And it starts with the inner game. It starts with yourself. You have to make sure that you have the confidence, that you've done what it takes to be confident, that you have a positive outlook, you're resilient. Being able to bounce back in today's environment is one of the most important things you can do as a leader. And that you're giving out positive energy. Because as a leader, we don't realize this, but people really feed off our energy more than we give it credit for. They look up to us more than we think. Once you do that, once you've got yourself squared away, then you can work on your people. And it starts with connecting. Don't hide. One thing I hated when I was in a corporate environment was all the senior leaders during really tough times, all the doors were closed. And we'd be in conference rooms, and we'd have special conference rooms where, you couldn't see inside. And you couldn't hear, right? But you need to be out there, you need to be open, and you need to be touching people. You need to be informative as well. So that's one of the things that as leaders we tend to do in uncertain times is we forward the information. Information's power. Well, information is power, but it's much more powerful if you share it. And so being transparent and telling people what you do know. And that's why some people are afraid to share information, because they don't want to share what they don't know. Mm-hmm. But it's fine to say, I don't know, but here's what I do know. And here's what we're going to do to figure it out. Because if you don't do that, people will develop their own truths. Mm-hmm. Those truths are going to be much worse than real truth almost all the time. So, yeah. And then, finally lead them. Like I did in the story I told, set the vision. Things are a mess right now. We don't know what's going on, but I'm really glad I'm surrounded by this team, because this team kicks butt, and we're going to figure it out. And here's how we're going to do that. So that's how you lead with the uncertainty.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, we're obviously getting leadership lessons in real time, obviously with this train derailment that happened a couple of weeks ago in East Palestine, Ohio, and all these chemicals are now up in the air. The people who live in that town in Ohio, they have real questions for the mayor, for the EPA. Is it safe to breathe the air? Is it safe to drink the water there in Ohio? And they have all of these questions. And, there's a lot of questions that remain because we have to do testing to figure out if it is truly safe or not. So I think we're getting that leadership lesson in real time, which is to say, hey, we don't know a lot. We're still trying to figure this out, but this is what I do know, that we've done XYZ test. Everything looks clean for now, but we have more tests to go, and we're going to keep you updated. And this is when you can expect some more information. And I think as long as people feel like they're included in the process, hopefully there'll be understanding, and calm will prevail until we get all of those answers. But I think you're absolutely right. It's okay to say, you know what? I don't know the answer right now. I will get back to you, and I'm working as hard as I possibly can to get you that information.
Yeah.
just be honest, I think is really
Great,
good.
great
Um,
example.
yeah, I think so. So talking about, building a future leader, what skills would a future leader possess? What should we be equipped with if we want to be a leader in the corporate world?
I'm going to make it simple. Because I could come up with a list of 20 for you,
Right.
but we're going to keep it simple and hit the big ones. And it starts with a mindset. You know, I think the leaders that we need today are leaders that have the mindset that helping others is the biggest. You know, having an abundant mindset where, there's plenty to go around. I'm going to help others get theirs because that's what I do as a leader. Is I help those underneath me. From a skill set standpoint, that ability to really understand people, to be able to empathize with the people, like we talked about, really just knowing what drives them, what their personal goals are, things like that. And finally, just how to communicate, how to take that knowledge and that mindset and communicate. I think at the end of the day, that's what a leader does, is they
Yeah.
communicate.
Yeah. Well, listen, there are definitely things that we can do to improve our communication skills. There's public speaking courses on college campuses. There's all kinds of leadership opportunities in student organizations. I would take advantage of every single one of those because there are so many lessons to be learned while you're still in college, where it's relatively quote unquote safe, before you get out in the real world and make mistakes that could cost a lot of money. So,
I,
so
I want to add to that a little bit too.
yeah,
So don't underestimate the leadership role you have in college now.
yeah.
I came out, I had a great leadership experience, and I told that story.
Mhm.
And I came out and it's like I forgot about it. I didn't think about it for like 10 years, and I didn't realize how great a leadership lesson that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was like able to take that and say, I've done all this before. I'm not this new kid in the corporate world.
Yeah.
So don't undersell what you're doing as a leader today.
I completely agree with that. A lot of the college students, they're thinking about business success all the time in terms of what they can do when they graduate and where they want to go with their career. What's the biggest myth you know about in terms of business success?
It's all about hard work. I'm gonna put some definition around that. So because there is a place for hard work, and I make a distinction, right? Where is the hard work coming from? If you're working hard on making an impact, on things that make an impact, the hard work certainly has a place. And I work hard. You know, if you're working hard and you're doing it because you're doing busy things, things that aren't really moving the needle forward, but you feel like you're working hard because you got to be in the office 12 hours just so you're like doing extra reports or sharpening a pencil or whatever it might be. That's not going to get you anywhere. So the important thing is to do the amount of work you need on the impactful things.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Now, again, your book is called From the Heart: Achieve Epic Results with an Approach That Works. What additional things would our listeners learn by reading your book that we haven't talked about?
It gets a lot more into detail on how you do these things.
Mhm.
So how you get to really know what's going on, how you bring compassion into the environment, how you handle difficult situations. Because having compassion doesn't necessarily mean you get walked over. Quite honestly, it means the opposite. And so I talk a lot in the book about how you handle those hard, tough decisions in a compassionate way, and why it's compassionate to fire somebody, for instance. But it's actually one of the more compassionate things you can do. And so you learn a lot about that, and then a lot about how to actually take that and make it happen in an organization. So it's great to talk about it, but how do you actually move the needle when you're working with 5, 10, 50, 100, 200, 10,000 people, right?
Yeah, I think our college students are really going to appreciate your book. So hopefully they'll all go out and pick it up because, again, empathy and compassion, all of these things are so important in being a great leader. And I think sometimes that can be lost. It's in short supply. So reading your book, I think, is really going to give them that outline of exactly how, like you said, to achieve those kinds of results and give them just, hey, here's the list. Here's the things that you need to be paying attention to. So really practical stuff. Now, you live in Phoenix, one of my favorite cities out there, and we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast, as you can imagine. So the next time I'm speaking in Phoenix, where should I go for a great meal?
Well, we enjoy food here at the Amy Lynn headquarters as well, and since we're foodies here. But so I would tell you to go to Lon's at the Hermosa Inn. Great chef, great wine list, and that's really all you need.
I like that.
And great scenery as well.
I'm going to go and check that out the next time I'm in town. I'll let you know what I think. Now, all right. So if our listeners, if they want to take advantage of your coaching services, where should they go in order to connect with you?
So a couple places. They can hit my website, which is aimtowinllc.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, the Instagrams, Twitter. I'm out there and about. They can hit the contact me on the website. They can reach out to my email. So wade.thomas@aimtowinllc.com.
aimtowinllc.com. Go and check it out, and go and pick up Wade's book. It's called From the Heart: Achieve Epic Results with an Approach That Works. Wade, thank you so much for your time today. Again, I think what you're talking about is so critical, not only on today's college campuses, but also if companies and employers want to win and get dramatic results, you're going to have to do it with empathy and compassion. So thank you for what you do, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You got it, Wade. And to our listening audience, if you enjoyed this talk with Wade, make sure that you like it. Make sure that you share it with other college students on your college campus. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.